This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by the Fire Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting thefirestore.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamzo. With me today, I have the editor-in-chief, Janelle Fosquet. I call her the commander because she keeps me in line. Well, Janelle, huge. We're kind of in, I'm going to say we knew him before, right? I think he's destined to be pretty successful in maybe in Hollywood in writing because he's got a cool project out called Code 3. First of all, I want to introduce Patrick Pianezza. How do you do with that?
Hey, that's perfect.
I finally got one.
I'll take
welcome. It. Yeah, welcome, brother. So we're going to talk a little bit about this movie, this little project you have going on. That happens to star, let's see, Lil Rel Howery. See, I got your name. I messed his up. Rainn Wilson, Rob Riggle. And it's, it is a huge production film based on a couple characters that are paramedics. You yourself were one. You got a lot of experience, man. You're one of the most interesting people in like EMS and fire because you've worked in EMS for a long time. You also have your master's in healthcare administration. So EMT, paramedic, crew chief paramedic, campus medic, critical care transport team, and now you have credits as a Hollywood writer. I don't even know where the hell to begin with you on this. I mean,
that's what a lot of people say after they meet me too. So I'm not offended by that.
So you have all this EMS. How did it come about where I want to start writing for this movie and take me through kind of what was that progress or the steps of this?
Yeah, it was one of those things that's really crazy and unplanned, which is probably the majority of my career. So, yeah, I was in college. I had been working as a medic. I got my EMT back in 2001. I got my paramedic in 2002. And just was like everyone else, coming home and telling stories to the family and to the friends, and people just going, you're making that up. That can't be real. All the stuff that we kind of see. And when I transferred to the University of South Carolina, part of my program in undergrad was I had to take a creative writing class. And the professor said something very cliche, but something I had never heard before. And it was, if you want to write a compelling story, write what you know. And I had just came off this brutal 14-hour shift that was supposed to be a 12-hour shift. We've all been there. And I just remember thinking, oh, you want a story? I'll tell you a story. And I went home and just cranked out this 36-page short story. It was like I was possessed. And that was it. This entire movie stemmed from a homework assignment in like 2004. And wow. So it was never intended to be a movie. It was quite literally a homework assignment. And I visit my brother who was working as a VFX producer in Santa Monica 4 or 5 years later. And we were kind of joking about, we should become Hollywood and do something. And he said, well, you got that short story. Why don't you turn it into a script? And I did not go to school for script writing. I didn't know anything about writing a script, but I said, sure, let's give it a go. Yeah, I've never been scared of giving something a shot, and basically took the short story and turned it into a script. And it was awful. The first draft is always terrible. And so now we have this first draft of a script. And what do we do with it? We certainly don't have agents or managers or anything like that. But I tell everybody the same bit, like you have to be good and then you have to get lucky. And for me, the fact that my brother was around is really my luck, because him and Chris Leone were coworkers at a VFX house in LA. And so my brother just strikes up a conversation with Chris and he says, hey, do you want to read a script? And Chris says, absolutely not. No one in LA wants to read an unsolicited script.
Famous last words, right? Yeah, sitting there, hey, I got a script for you. No, right?
Absolutely not. Next. But my brother is nothing if not determined, and wore him down. And Chris finally relented and said, what's it about? And he said, it's about being a paramedic. And what's Patrick know about that? He's been one for 10 years. Okay, fine. And so he read it and he liked the first draft enough to have a meeting with me. And one of the things that we sat down the first time I had met him, we just started kind of telling stories and getting into the, what's the job? What's it like? And I remember he didn't ask me what's the worst thing you ever saw, but he said, tell me something no one else knows. And I just started laughing. And I just said, well, I know what brains smell like. And he almost fell out of his chair and he was like, all right, cool, let's talk. And we just were off to the races. And then 10 years later, we made a movie. It was an iterative process. We certainly weren't doing it full time. And it's not like we had Rainn in our back pocket. Chris is one of the best mentors and friends I've had over the past dozen years. And so we've just been kind of working on it and making it better and better. And we got it to a point that was good enough to share. And the rest is history. It ended up in Rainn's lap. Rainn loved it and got us Wayfair and the financing. And then we were off to the races.
So is that how this works? So you got, all of a sudden you're like, hey, I got a director who likes this. He probably helped with the script, as you had mentioned, right? And we're talking about Christopher Leone. Is that correct?
Yeah. He's the co-writer. Let me be clear. He didn't help. He helped. He wrote 50% of this movie.
Okay. And then how do you get it into Rainn Wilson's lap there? Is there a person that knows somebody or how does that even happen?
Yeah. So I don't know all of the specifics about that part of the story, but Chris is a very talented and credited writer as well as a director. And so he already had representation. And so that his rep started pitching our film around town and somehow, somewhere, somebody knew Rainn and Rainn got a chance to read it. And like I said, that's the part of the story I don't know, but he got it in his hands and just flipped for it and was like, this is me. And so we went with it.
Well, I thank you for by the way, for allowing us to, we were able to screen it. And I watched it a couple of times and I'll be honest, it was so hard to not show it to my crew ahead of time because there are so many situations there where, you got to Hollywood it up a little bit, right? Like, so I don't give away too many. Are the calls and the scenarios in the movie things that you experienced or things you read or combination of things?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I like to clarify this all the time or from the beginning. It's not an autobiography. Like the main character's name is Randy. It's not me. The name is based off of my paramedic instructor, who was a major mentor in my life. However, all of the calls that you see are caricatures of all of the calls that I've ran. So every single thing that you see in that film is based off of a real life experience that I've had. But it's not like, John Doe at 1314 Dirt Lane. It's the dozen John Does that have kind of morphed together. And to your point, no shift that is in this movie is as crazy. Like no one shift is this nuts. We had to, you take 12 years, you boil it into 24 hours. And that's what comes out of the film. But the one thing that I'm really happy about is that it's resonating with people that are doing the job. It still feels relevant. It still feels like it's honest and true. And to me, that was my bar. I mean, obviously we want to make it entertaining for people that don't work in EMS, and we want people to be entertained, and we want the first responders to feel validated and seen. But the fact that it is playing true and the authenticity is coming through the screen is something I'm incredibly proud of.
Yeah, right away from scene one, and I told you this even off screen, so I'm not just blowing smoke here, I watched that first scene and there's some pauses and some interjections and some text that comes up. I'm not going to give away too much, but I'm like, this first scene, people need to take note of. I think from, hey, how much do paramedics get paid compared to, other jobs and professions? And I think it really will help, not only, I think it's going to help market the fire service a little bit for people to understand us. So, I mean, with that, I said off screen, I'm like, brother, thank you. Because this is it's very well written. It comes together. Of course, there's some Hollywood aspects of it, but I got that same idea. There were like a couple of those scenes. I'm like, oh yeah, I've been here before. That, like you said, there's lines in there where I think everybody who is in the fire service will chuckle and go, oh boy, right? Is there anything you fought for that they wanted to cut? And you're like, no, we really need to keep this in because it keeps that, that real kind of touch of reality.
There was also a lot of stuff that I fought for that hit the cutting room floor that I'm still heartbroken over. That is really, there's not a lot as far as like, there's two large things that got cut. Like one was an entire scene, which I understand. We had a scene that got cut that was with Seth Green and Aimee and Rainn and Rel, and it was like a comedy night. It was the last night of shooting. Those four were fantastic. It was hilarious. And while the scene itself, if you were to just cut the scene out and make that, it would have been perfect. But every time we tried to fit it into the film, it just slowed down the pacing and the timing just didn't work. And so it's like this great comedic bit that just didn't fit the rest of the movie. And that was really terrible. The one that really hurts is we had this great explainer about cardiac arrest and VFib. And it was, I personally think it's one of the best things we did. And the studio cut it, and it was heartbreaking because it was like, but it's so good and it fits perfectly. But it ended up getting cut. And other than those two large things, everything else has been more some of the lines. Like Chris and I wanted to go darker on some of the parts and kind of a deeper, so you get the better punch at the end. I'm not giving anything away, but they're having a conversation, and they're having this heart to heart in the diner. And Rainn says he's telling this story, and it's part of a punchline, so I don't want to give that part away. But
I know which one you're talking about too.
He says something. He makes this notion to Aimee, and she's kind of laughing about it. And he gives her this look, and there was a line that was so much more insightful, or not insightful, but so much darker, that the studio was like, we can't possibly tell that story. That gets cut. But by and large, just everybody was really engaged and really accepting and was really invested in the story. And I told everyone from cast to crew from the day we got started, this is my love letter to EMS and by tangent, the fire service. I was a fireman for about almost 4 years as a volunteer. But it's one of those things where I didn't realize it was my love letter until we got done and kind of sold the project. And then I kind of retrospectively looked back at the stories, and I was like, no, this is a love letter to a job that I did for, 12, 15 years.
That's awesome. There's still plenty of dark humor in here too, though, even though that one got cut. Do you have a favorite line?
I love the line that it's already been out. It's in the trailer, and Rel goes, "You act like I'm your best friend," and he's like, "God damn it, I am his best friend." And that is directly pulled from my experience. So one of the things that cracks me up is that I started to realize, even when I was in college. So I was a college kid, and when I started looking around, I started to realize that all of my friends were other medics, cops, or firemen. And I remember having mixed feelings about it. I'm like, I love these people, but shouldn't I have people that are
outside?
Outside of this job. And so that was one of the really funny things that line speaks to me quite a bit.
Yeah, I've mentioned that too, even off. So it's great that you said that, because I had the two lines. One, I'm not gonna give the punchline for the diner, and then the other one was, yeah, damn it, I am his best friend. There are quite a few. I got to watch it again. Were there outtakes that will always be kind of like burned in your head that we won't get to see? Are there?
So many.
Yeah.
So Chris was really good about letting the actors improvise. And so the first time you meet Aimee in the back of the ambulance, they did this where she slams the door on him right before they take off for their shift. She did this great one-liner where Rainn is kind of being a dick to the new girl and is trying to scare her a little bit, and she's just not having it. And so I can't remember the line that's actually in the movie, but the line that got cut that I loved was, she called him a Midwest Mussolini and slammed the door in his face. And I was just like, that was by far my favorite take that didn't make it into the film.
I love the development of that particular character throughout the film, and I was like, this is like a oh snap, like a Usual Suspects kind of Kaiser Soze moment. I'm not gonna give it up, but hopefully people are like, oh, okay, and I mean, was that based off of an experience that you had as well?
No, so that part was we were trying to figure out a way to give Aimee's character a lot of weight. And so I don't want to give it away either. And so
Okay.
Basically it was one of those things where we originally, so we're talking many iterations ago, there was no female in the film. It was just three guys in a box and a doctor, and that was kind of our foil. And then when we turned Aimee's character into a woman, we figured there could be more interplay on kind of like this. It's demeaning and it's not intended this way, but kind of like that damsel in distress. We could get more dangerous by bringing a woman into these scenes, into these scenarios. And as we were writing, one of the things that not only did we already know this, I feel like I'm defending myself here, but like she didn't need saving. Like even on the page, she didn't need saving. That's I mean, not just credit to Aimee for being able to play that. So when we have that Kaiser Soze moment, it's earned, because in the beginning, she's already fighting back against Rainn from the very beginning about like, I deserve to be here. And then she proves it at the end. And to us, that was really important and came about really organically. And it was one of those things where Chris and I were on a call, and I just said, well, what if? And it was like the light bulb went off, and it was like, that's our line. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And that's how we got that payoff.
I think it's symbolic too for females within the fire service. They seem to have to fight and fight and fight sometimes, right, to get that recognition or to get that to be put on that same level. And I could see some of that in there. Of course, it seems like they always deliver and then some. So the males have to really take note and catch up.
I like how she was written though, because she's empowered from the get-go. She knows her worth, she knows her value, she's sharp, but she still has to put in the work to earn their trust and to prove herself. And she's funny. She can keep up with everybody and send some sharp remarks right back to them, even as they're giving her grief for being the rookie. I thought it was really smartly done with her.
Yeah,
and I'm glad to hear that, because the whole point is like, we're rough. I will speak in very large generalities. We're rough on all rookies, gender notwithstanding. And so once we kind of got that, we were kind of like, all right, well, we're going to treat her like anybody else. And she just stands up, which is really what we were looking for. It was never intended to be like guys versus girls, especially not in this day and age, or even on the page. It's just the way it naturally happened.
Yeah, it did to a certain point. Then it was a team.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And that was kind of the cool thing to see it all come together. And there are some dark moments. So like, we're talking that there's a lot of funny moments. There's a lot of cool one-liners, but there are some dark situations, some dark moments. So let me ask on a, kind of a personal basis, was this therapeutic for you in some ways?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I tell everybody, like, EMS is one of my favorite things I've ever done in my life, and arguably one of the darkest things I've done, because especially as a young adult, 19 through 28, I think, or older, like, it was one of those things where I was having trouble relating to classmates in college, because regardless of whether it was a friend or a date or whatever, I have this incredibly burned in memory of a friend of mine just going on and on and on about getting a C on a test. And I was just like, I need to go to, like, I don't care anymore. I got to go to bed. Like, leave me alone. I've had a bad day. Like, go away. And just kept nipping. And I just looked at them in the face and I said, I declared a family of 4 dead today. I don't care about your test. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments where, like, yeah, no, I wasn't a good person. Like, and it took a significant amount of therapy to get back to normal. And I've said this on other things too. I'm incredibly lucky. I never suffered from drug addiction or alcoholism. And that's not to insult the people that have those struggles. It's one of those things that I was very fortunate that I didn't jump down that well, but the mental health toll is enormous. And that's one of the things that we talk about in the film is we're very honest about the job, the highs, the lows, and just the day-to-day stress of what this job can do. And I'm a huge advocate because when I was coming up, talking to people about burnout or, I'm stressed was kind of shunned. Let's just be frank, it was shunned. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
In fact, I went to somebody, one of my higher ups, and I'm not naming names because I don't blame this person. They didn't have a better answer. And I went to them and I was like, hey, look, man, I'm burnt out. I can't, I'm struggling. I'm trying to figure it out. I can't, I got a problem. And he just laughed and he just said, we're all burnt out. Get back on the truck. And that was really kind of oh, okay, there was your gut punch. Like, people are dying, get back on the truck. And it was like, oh, okay. And I would never make a comparison in the military. I've never served in the military. Tons of respect for those people. But for me, that was probably one of the biggest downhills for me is like, we're helping people. And then when I asked for help, it was like, there is no help. Like, your job is to keep helping. And so in the film, we actually we originally had put that in there, but it got cut because it was almost too depressing.
Yeah.
For all the reasons I'm explaining here. So the film, being able to write this was very therapeutic. And again, the original short story came from a very dark place. Like, I was not a nice person. I was very burnt out when I wrote the short story. But a lot of that still eked through. And I think that we landed in a place that is very honest and very true, but we're not parochial. Like you said, we talk about the salaries, we talk about the burnout, but it's easy to talk about pay, but then you have to get into the discussion about reimbursement rates, and you have to start talking about, how different insurers are billing ambulance and all of these naughty things that no one on this podcast really cares about. But it's easy for me to just say, oh yeah, just, increase your revenue. And it's like, well, do you understand what that means?
Yeah, right. And Rob Riggle does a great job on the hospital side too. The character you love to hate, Rob Riggle, right?
Oh, he was fantastic. Yeah.
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision we make as a company is about you, our customer. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, and we don't take that lightly. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop our family of brands, including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more. Now let's get back to the show.
Well, I love how you very smartly worked in things like the reimbursement rates and like it's there, but it kind of behind the scenes working is like, okay, there is no easy solution here. There is no snap your fingers and solve the issue. And even though Rob Riggle's character is set up as like the jerk, the jerk doctor, there's a moment even where you get to see what he's up against. And he has a little bit of a monologue about what he's experiencing. And you just kind of feel like, man, like there's a push and pull happening at every single angle. It's not just all about what the medics are going through, but they're part in a much larger system that is broken, as it's explained in the movie.
Yeah, that was really important for us to get that scene into because that scene actually got written very, very late, like while we were shooting, because Rob plays an amazing foil to Rainn, and he's very, very good at it. But even we were starting to realize like it's a cartoon because every time you never see Rob have a good day. He's just angry all the time. And one of the things we realized was he's not going to be relatable. He's just, I'm sure there are people who listen to this podcast that have a physician that drive them crazy. So do I. But even those people have good days. And in our film, we don't have a traditional villain. So Rob is kind of like our villain, but we had to make him like, well, why? And I think it's very realistic and very honest. Is like the ER docs that I know too, they're up against some of the same barriers that we are on the street.
Yeah. I think that also then reinforces to us in EMS too. You got to think about, right? Like be curious, not judgmental. In a lot of cases, as much as we like to, because that doctor has like as explained in the movie, an enormous amount of stress, also different kind, right? We all are facing it. So, it's kind of cool. Maybe a movie like this is going to help bring that together, which kind of comes back to a two-part question. I mean, when you were writing this, it sounds like it was therapy, but as you're writing it and it becomes developed, like, what do you want kind of the legacy of the movie to be?
I mean, for me, it's all about the people that are doing the job. At every interview, I've said the same thing, and that is a heartfelt thank you to anybody who's still wearing a patch, wearing a badge, whatever, for the work that they're doing, because very few people, generally speaking, understand it from that vantage point. And so I'm always incredibly grateful for those that continue on and do the work. I have not treated a patient in the better part of a decade, for any particular service. But my hope for the legacy of the film is that, number one, that the people that are doing the job feel seen and validated, and feel grateful that we've made a story as best we can to be honest about it. And the other thing too is that the general public, the broader public, get a view into a job that is chaotic and challenging, but very rewarding. And so it's kind of like it's two things. It's like, here's the job, so hopefully you'll self-screen if you're not into this kind of thing. But then it's also like, hey, this is challenging, but it can be incredibly fun, and it can be very rewarding, and it can be really wonderful, especially with a lot of the improvements that have been made, in my view, and my personal opinion, that have been made since I got out. But it's, that's my hope for the film, is, and then obviously for it to be entertaining, obviously, as well. Nobody wants to make the biggest thing I keep seeing in the comments is like, oh, great, if it's really authentic, it'll just be a 2-hour film about lift assistants and drunks. I'm like, nobody wants to go see that movie.
Well, yes, but then there's the occasional real calls that are spread between them, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, but you can still make some of those calls interesting too, especially with the cast that you had or have.
Oh yeah. Well, and I don't know about you, Zam, but when I was watching it, I was just like, everybody needs to see this from the education standpoint. Like, the general public should watch this to have a better understanding about how EMS goes, like what a paramedic is going to see and what an EMT is going to see, and just kind of what that day to day can look like and the realities of the job. Because, you're going to have people making jokes like that, but then there's going to be, on the flip side, it's just like in the fire service, right? Like, all the marketing is like putting out fires every day, and we know that's not the reality. So this is just a really, really great snapshot of the types of calls and the types of stress and why it's so intense, I think. And I just kept finding myself thinking that over and over again, that people just, general public, this would be quite educational.
Has your wife seen it? And like,
Mine?
people that are outside of EMS, have they seen the screen of the movie yet? Yeah.
Yeah, I've chained my wife to the chair. She's seen this movie probably 200 times at this point. But yeah, I've shown it to other people too, and they've all had kind of that similar reaction. Like, this is nuts, and I had no idea you guys would do that. And it's like, well, yeah, that's kind of the job. And it's funny because way before, well, I guess now I had the short story written, but I wrote an article in EMS magazine 10 years ago or so, with the title, "Do We Deserve to Be Called Ambulance Drivers?" And it's still a hot take. And I stand by, I reread the article recently because I've been talking about it. And I stand by it. I think it's true. I think we, to a certain extent, deserve to be called that, because how often have you shown up to a scene, especially anything cardiac related? And I'm not even talking about put your cape on and do CPR. I'm talking about just run-of-the-mill chest pain, whether or not it's a STEMI or not. And the patients are looking at you like, you could start an IV, you can read this heart rhythm, you can give me medicine. Like, they have no idea. And part of that is like, it's not their job to understand the minutia of the job. But I think it's a huge failure on our part to not be going out there to the community, explaining what happens in this, little truck that runs down the road. And, there's like 3 windows in it. No one can see inside. And it's just a giant mystery. And so I think we, as an organization, if we want to be taken being seen as professionals, it's up to us to do much better job of promoting and educating about everything that EMS can do in the community.
Amen, brother. We talk about that a lot on the podcast, about we don't get into fire service, or we don't get EMS to kind of market ourselves, right? We just do it for the job, because we want to make a difference, which is really what's relatable in the movie. But on the other side of it, society has become so loud that we sometimes have to get up there and say, this is what we do. How did the actors go? What was it like working with Rainn and Laurel with these situations? Did at any point they went, are you serious? Like, did they look at you and go, is this for real, kind of thing?
Yeah. So there's, first of all, let me answer the first part of the question. It was incredible. Aimee, Rainn, and Rel were amazing partners throughout the entire project. In fact, they were invested from the get. In fact, while we were in pre-production, so before cameras even turn on, we had a full day with all three of them and brought them to Lifeline Ambulance in LA. And I had 8 hours to take them from knowing absolutely nothing to looking plausible as paramedics in 8 hours. And so we ran them through their paces. The first thing we did was, before they touched anything medical, we pulled up in an ambulance and I said, everybody get in the back. And they said, what? And I said, get in the back. And so I drove them around LA a little bit and kind of gave them the treatment. I said, don't put a seatbelt on, like, hold that. Here's this bar. This is the only thing you've got to hold on to. And we tossed them around the truck a little bit. And they're like, and they came back and their eyes were like this. And they're like, how do you do this? And it's like, you figure out your own way. Now, obviously, while we were shooting, nobody was driving, obviously. But we wanted to get them the feel of like, hey, this is what you're going to be imitating. So you're not just on a beautiful, quiet soundstage and nothing is happening. But we taught them how to intubate. We got them all healthcare provider CPR certified, all three of them.
Nice.
We put them through their paces. They had to BVM. They had to learn how to do all of that.
They had to really do chest compressions, right? So they felt what that was like. And there's a scene in the movie, very relatable on that. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, that was one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't expect TV or movies to get it right all the time, but the CPR you see on screen is garbage all of the time. And I hate it, because part of me is I'm part of a trainer and an educator, and it's people will imitate what they see on TV. And so if you're doing CPR on a bed, or even if you're just doing like the Hollywood CPR, which is just kind of this kind of motion, you're not doing anything. I think it translates. People remember what they see on screen. And so for me, my hill to die on always was the CPR in this film is going to be done right. And so that obviously required some post-production, because no actor wanted us to crush their chest.
Yes.
So there is some movie magic there, but the CPR is correct. We get to the correct depth, the correct rate. We do all of that stuff because I felt it was too important not to. And the same thing with the monitors. The cardiac monitors are accurate to the clinical presentations of the patients that we see. So the other thing I wanted to say is that they were very invested, especially Aimee. What I love about Aimee, she showed up to that one day of training with like a notebook, and to this day, I will bet you if you give her the EMT test, she would pass.
Oh wow!
Yeah, she was great. They all were, but she was like, it was hilarious the way she was super studious about it. But they all were every day before, especially when we do anything medical. I was on set every day, which is very unusual in Hollywood. Usually writers are paid and gone, and that's it. But the relationship I had with Chris was, especially when we're doing something medical, I want to be on set to make sure that we're doing it correctly. And that scene that you were talking about is very complex. And we rehearsed it with the actors for at least an hour before we turned the cameras on. And I was very lucky because one of my really good friends, the guy that Mike is named after, happened to be on set that day too. I invited him out to come see some movie magic. And so basically I threw it to him and I was like, all right, cool. We're going to run this scenario. Let's do it. And so him and I kind of did it. And then we showed it to the actors. We're like, okay, cool. So here's the scenario. Here's what's happening. And then basically I think Rainn called action, and Mike and I just ran through the paces and did all the things and threw him on the stretcher. And we were in the truck in 7-8 minutes done. And they just sat there and just stared at us. And they're like, great. You're not the one who has to do that on camera.
Yeah, right. Back it up now. Let's go through this again, right?
But no, they were they were fantastic. But the biggest eye-opening moment for us was, especially for like that scene and some of the other ones that are more complex, some of the car accident scenes, was I would have never thought about it that way. Because again, Mike is still a paramedic and he's on the fire department in Springfield. And him and I used to work together. And it was, for us, it was second nature because we've been doing the job for so long. Of course, I'm going to check an airway. Of course, I'm going to do this. Of course, I'm going to, all the things. The actors have zero scope of reference for any of this.
Yeah.
And so one of them pulled me to the side and they were like, treat this like a dance. Right hand goes here. Left foot goes here. And once they finally, when they asked for it that way is when it really made sense to me. It's like, oh yeah. Because I would argue probably most of us would be like, of course you're going to check an airway. You're going to check for a pulse. You're going to do, and the general public, if they're not trained, they're just going to stand there and be like, I don't know what to do. And so when we converted all of that stuff into quite literally choreography at the most basic sense, it helped them a whole lot. And I think it translated pretty well to screen, because we're not checking people's IV insertion methodology, but you see that it's one of the steps.
Yeah. Yeah. And I noticed that too. You could have had them just have a cell phone to record you as you did that, because that's realistic these days too, right? Like, yeah. I mean, a lot of us are on camera, but it's not a movie that we're filming; it's real life. And with that, like, do you see? I mean, my suggestion or my hope is that this could turn into a series.
Oh, please, yes, that would be fantastic. I would love nothing more than to turn this into a series.
We're going to throw that out there in the atmosphere here, because there are so many more scenarios that I think could be used to educate the public and entertain. And right, you could almost make it a user kind of user submissions. And of course, you could use the podcast as a means to say, hey, submit your call to Patrick and the team about, you wouldn't believe it, but this is what happened. And it's, I'm sure that and that's going to be part of the cool part about this. And once again, it's Code 3. It's coming out on September 12th. Where can we see this?
So it's in theaters only, and it's going to select theaters. So it's not it's not, as of right now, it's not getting a national release. We know that we're going to the top 20 cities, and that list hasn't been finalized. Now, here's the nice thing. If we absolutely crush the first week, it gives other theaters more reason to play this movie in more markets, where we are, by literal definition, a small independent movie. I tell everybody, nobody got paid $1 million on this film. Like, the budget for the entire project was $7.5 million. Nobody got paid $1 million. But the better we do in theaters, the more theaters we can go to. I do know that once the theater run is done, whatever that is, whether it's 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever that is, it will go to video on demand. So wherever you could rent it virtually for, I don't know how much. And then after that is done, then they'll negotiate to some streamer, most likely. But that's literally an entire different arm that I have zero control or input into.
1 week at a time. Is the premiere? Would you get to dress up, go to the premiere, and do the whole red carpet walk?
Not quite. They're not doing a premiere with this film. They are doing a screening event in Chicago. They're not calling it a premiere. There is no red carpet. But the really cool thing is, the thing that I'm really proud of is, so I grew up in Illinois, I grew up in central Illinois.
Springfield?
Just north of Springfield, a little town called Sherman. Springfield was the big city. But the cool thing is, because they're doing this screening event in Chicago, my old department is bringing a fire truck up to the event. And so the main actors and myself are going to ride into the screening event on one of my old trucks, which is really, really cool.
Where in Chicago will that be? Which theater?
The Wayfarer Theater. I believe it's in or something Heights. I don't know the neighborhood, but there's only one Wayfarer Theater in Chicago, and that's on the 12th. They're going to continue to have it there throughout the theatrical run. So if you're in the Chicago area, Wayfarer Theater.
Okay. Show up. Better Every Shift Nation. We call ourselves the Misfits a little bit because we look at things a little differently. We try to improve every day. We try to support, missions like what is happening here with Code 3. What's next for you? I mean, we had talked a little bit behind the scenes about, right? You didn't make a lot of money on this one. Hopefully we can get you to the series. And if you need some technical writers on that, I'm totally,
Hey, look,
I can be Bob, brother.
Yeah, I tell everybody my friendship is free. My consulting is pretty expensive.
Yeah, well, hey, a trip out to LA. We'll have our friend Chief Baroni come out, Chief Fennessy. You know, we could get you some cameos by some of the chiefs on it. But
Yeah, of
you know,
course.
as far for you, you're probably still writing. I
Yep.
hope, right? Okay,
Yep.
and
Still writing. We're trying to. We're. It's always about the next thing, and so one of the projects that I've got that I'm writing on currently with my brother is an animated series about the American healthcare system, and think like South Park and Archer meets hospital operations. So there's plenty of material there. There's certainly more than a pilot written on the potential spin-off series for, you know, Code 3, the TV show, or, you know, a streamer run. And then another project, another movie I wrote that is, you know, we'll see if we catch some momentum, but to be able to continue in this realm would be incredibly gratifying.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for writing it. We do have to geek out now. Janelle and I behind the scenes were like, okay, what was the kind of the coolest? Who's the coolest or you know, person that you got to meet through this whole project that, you know, was that surprised you a little bit?
So I have to exclude Aimee, Rainn, and Ralph from this conversation, because I'm assuming, like, those three guys, all three of them, men and women, are awesome, and I love them, and they're great. I'm going to set them to the side because they were super cool, and they were the ones I worked the most with. Seth Green was incredible, and I hate the fact that his scene got cut, but he was super funny and not guarded at all when we were working. But arguably one of my favorite people on set was Rob Riggle. He is. I told my friends, so just to level set, I am 5'6". I'm not a tall human. Rob is at least 6'2", maybe 6'3". I don't know. And I tell everybody, he's 10 times more handsome in real life than you think he is. Like, you may see him on screen, he's just adorable. But he was an officer in the Marine Corps, and he can go from collegial and hilarious to menacing at the drop of a hat. And so we were shooting him and I were kind of cracking up on the side for something silly. And then he had to go do his scene, and he messed up some wording. And so I nudged Chris, and I just said, "Hey, Chris, the line didn't play right." And he just looks at me and he goes, "You go tell him." And so I go run over to Rob, and I'm like, "Hey, Rob." And, you know, he just looks at me and I was just like, "Please, sir, which it's just me." Yeah, I just had to be like, you know, this line is just a little off, and here's why. And he's still kind of in character. And then he just breaks from it. He's like, "Oh, thanks a lot."
And then back at it.
Yeah. But yeah, he's great.
He's great. He was in he played the voice on some fire prevention cartoons that we would play during Fire Prevention Week. All of a sudden I'm like, is that Rob Riggle's voice? So he's done a lot of things, I think, within the fire service. So you got to keep him in with the series, and then you got to bring him back with yourself after this continues to move on, because we're going to push it through here, through the podcast. Again, it's Code 3, everybody, coming out selectively on September 12th. When it comes out to your area, please support it. Bring your family and friends, because it's going to bring up forth some great conversations that may be therapeutic for you, like it has been for Patrick to write, and actually for me to watch, and really spurred a lot of great conversations. So once again, brother, thanks for the time. Thanks for being here. And for those that are listening, if you have questions for us here on the Better Every Shift podcast, you can email us. You could comment. Please comment with you know, some of the things that you liked about Code 3. Again, get out and see it. It will really hit you.
Just go see a movie.
Yeah, go see a movie.
Just go back out and see a movie.
Amen. It's therapeutic. Take your family. And I think there's going to be some scenes that will probably touch your heart a little bit, and make you laugh, make you cry, make you think, and make you talk, which all in all will make you do something to be a little bit better, which is what we're about here on the Better Every Shift podcast. So once again, everybody, really get out there, go see Code 3, go learn something, go do something, and then go share something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Medic 42, respond emergent to psychiatric patient.
$20 said he's gonna be butt ass naked.
Well, there you have it. It's a draw. Shirt, no pants. That's like Winnie the Pooh. Mike, you gonna let me drive today?
No. I will, you heal.
I should mention at this point that you're all going to die. Heart attack, car accident, fork in the toaster, or peanut allergy.
Drowning's the worst way to go. Best way to die? Decapitation. You guys ever see anyone choke to death?
All we want to do is save your life. Some of you don't make it easy.
Get out of my house! Gun! I know you can run that fast.
Most people on this job can't last a year. They can't hack it.
Take my dollar, you mother...
You are senior, you get the student.
No.
Is there another paramedic I should put them with? Somebody better than you?
Nobody's better than me.
Let's hit it.
Why are you here?
Because I want to save lives. You have people's lives in your hands. How can you not care?
I'm burning out, and the whole system is broken. I need the hell out of EMS.
I'm quitting.
That's it. I'm out of here.
Please don't go out like this.
You gonna miss me?
We're just co-workers, man. You act like I'm like your best friend. Damn it, I'm his best friend. Can you feel the...
I got into EMS because I really wanted to help people.
Officers, we've got this totally under control.
But this is a job.
Oh, come on! Come on!
You clock in, you clock out.
I don't think you really believe that.
Can you feel the...
I'm the president of the United States!
Mr. President, let's Secret Service, man. We're here to evacuate you and take you to the White House.
What about the First Lady and the Vice President?
We're gonna send a second chopper.
She's been having a little trouble breathing lately.
Define lately.